Hi, this is part 2 of the video from Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So about a year and a half ago, I was still pretty much a peacekeeper, I would say. And let's just say that didn't work out very well for me. I allowed myself to be controlled by others. I avoided conflict. I swept things under the rug instead of speaking up. I was way more quiet than speaking up, which isn't always a good thing. I was timid. I allowed myself to be manipulated. I would just kind of go with the flow all the time, even if it wasn't what I wanted or what I thought was right. I over-apologized and I overextended grace. About a year and a half ago, though, the Holy Spirit really gave me courage and bravery to speak up about something that was not right, to speak up about an injustice that was happening and taking place. And this was really hard for me and really scary for me. And there's no way I would have done it on my own. It was all the Holy Spirit revealing wisdom to me and truth and just showing me that how's it going sweeping every problem under the rug? Like, how's that going for you? And it wasn't going well. And I was kind of miserable because of it, because I felt like my opinions didn't matter. And so God showed me that He wants us to confront injustice, knowing that temporary conflict, when we confront injustice, there probably will be conflict between us and the other person because we're kind of exposing something. We're bringing that darkness into the light. And not many people like that when that darkness is brought into the light. So that could bring conflict, but it could lead to long-term peace in the relationship. And God tells us that if someone is caught in sin, that you who are spiritual should restore that person gently. So God led me to the story of Esther and how there was injustice happening. Haman wanted God's people to bow down to him in Esther chapter 3. But Mordecai, who's Esther's cousin, refused to bow down, to kneel down, or to pay him honor. He worshiped God instead. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated, for he had told them he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor, he was enraged. So Mordecai following God's lead and doing what he knew God wanted him to do, that stirred up a lot of conflict. He didn't just go with the flow and do what a person wanted him to do to keep the peace with that person. He submitted to God's will and did what God wanted him to do. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. So Mordecai lets his cousin Esther, Queen Esther, know that Haman has this plan to destroy and kill the Jews, which are her people. And he tells her that she should go confront the king and let him know of Haman's plan. And Esther's fearful because back then, even though the king was her husband, she had to be summoned by him first in order to approach him, or she could die, which in our time seems kind of silly. Like, you can't go talk to your husband without being summoned first, but that's how it was in this story. So he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. For any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their life. So this takes a lot of courage on Esther's part. She could die for approaching the king, but she sees this injustice happening. She sees that her people are going to lose their lives, and she she decides to stand up for them. God gives her that strength and that bravery and that boldness and that power to stand up for her people. So she does approach the king, and the king does not kill her. And Mordecai says to her, if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So this whole thing was prepared in advance by God. So if she remains silent, yeah, deliverance may come in another form, but God has prepared her for such a time as this. Friend, maybe there's something happening in your life right now. Maybe there's an injustice that's happening with you or someone that you love. Maybe God's speaking this to you like he did to me a year and a half ago, that you've come into this position for such a time as this. Don't stay quiet anymore. Speak up for what you know is right. And yeah, it could stir up more trouble and more conflict, but in the end, exposing that fruitless deeds of darkness and the power of the Holy Spirit, that is what God calls us to do. And he will bring us this peace in doing that. I'm going to go. My dog's growling.